welcome to Security of Things World 2017. It's my pleasure to be here with our chairman, Richard Knowlton. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Great pleasure to be here.
Richard, a lot has happened in the past when we are talking about security, the incident with the NHS and other major companies that were hacked. So what do you think? Is it a new era of security threats lying ahead of us? Do we have to be afraid, or what do you see in the future?
Well, I think it's important for a security professional to say we never need to be afraid. But on the other hand, we do need to think very carefully about some of the challenges that are coming down the track towards us, because what we saw, I think, were things which were quantitatively and qualitatively different from what we'd seen before. Mm-hmm. The place where I would start probably is with the Mirai hack last autumn. Yeah. We've been talking as security professionals for a long time about what could happen. Mm-hmm. And suddenly we were faced with a pretty awful reality of a major bot attack, which had the effect of bringing down a number of really well-known names, Netflix, Amazon, and so on. Yeah. And that really was a wake-up call, because the inevitable happened. It was pretty unsophisticated software in itself, but it was then published on the internet, and developers got hold of it and made it more smart, more effective, and we began to see the effects very quickly in terms both of governments and private institutions. Yeah. Ransomware, you mentioned the NHS hack in the UK. Yeah. Ransomware had been something that had been troubling security professionals for a number of years with increasing intensity. And I got a particular view on the effect on the NHS, for example, which perhaps I should mention, which is that there's an awful lot of blaming been going on, that if only these stupid organisations had not done their patching, had not kept their software up to date, none of this needed to have happened to them. But I could slightly turn that on its head, perhaps, and say, for the big companies like Microsoft, of course it's a part of their business model that they want us to buy the new software at regular intervals. It makes them money. If you're an organisation like the NHS or another organisation which is very extensive, but with a budget that's under real pressure, it's perhaps not realistic to expect them to be updating their software every 3 or 4 years. And even the question of putting patches into place in a complex organisation is not something that's that simple. So to go back where we started, nothing to be afraid about, but lots of things we need to think very carefully about, I'd say.
That's good. A good thought. So what do you think companies need in order to implement the right security strategy, Richard?
Oh, well, that's a very big question in itself. I think there are a number of things that need to happen. Things are getting better, even since I spoke to you last year, but there are still a lot of companies who at the board level or the executive committee level don't really understand digital security or the cyber world in general, who still think too much that it's a technical issue that should be left to technicians. That is profoundly wrong. I seem to remember using almost exactly the same words last year. Yeah. These are issues which need to be handled as part of the general risk management strategy of a company. I always say that cybersecurity is a little bit like tax. It's a key risk for the company. A board doesn't simply say, oh, tax, that's too complicated, I don't understand it, just leave it to the specialists. What they do is get those specialists to come and brief them and then put it into the context of their general risk management strategy. Exactly the same must happen with cyber and digital risk, I think.
So what you say when we say IoT, what you say opportunity or threat, and just in a brief sentence?
Well, of course, it's both. Any great step forward is going to bring its risks and its problems with them. That's part of the joy of being in a fast-developing world. I think the benefits to be reaped from IoT are so enormous and so obvious that we can't really resist it, nor should we resist it. But in not least the presentations, some of which we saw this morning, we are dealing with high degrees of complexity that really need to be thought through carefully to make sure that we can reap the benefits in a secure way.
Yeah. Speaking of today's presentations, what are your impressions so far of the Security of World 2017?
Well, we're halfway through the first day, so it's quite early. We had several keynote presentations which were dealing really at the strategic level with some of the issues we needed to be thinking about. And then I was moderating a stream where we had 4 presentations which were rather more detailed, looking at specific security concerns in various industries, ending up then with the one coming from a major multinational about the implications of IoT in their space. I would say they've been universally excellent presentations. The only slight frustration perhaps is that with those keynotes they've been quite dense, and there hasn't always been enough time really to get engaged with the speaker in the way that we would like, but that's what lunch breaks are for. We'll be able to do that now.
So what are you hoping to take away with you from this year's conference?
I've already got extensive notes. I've learned quite a lot already this morning. But I think I had a number of key questions here, which were really questions which were hangovers from last year. They were really around the security of software in particular. They were around the issue that I've mentioned, board awareness, the challenges for CISOs, the technical security specialists who I think have not fully yet caught up with the implications of IoT security for them. I think those are the sorts of questions that I'd like to see more generally answered, but we have another day and a half to go.
Great. It was lovely to have you here again, Richard, and I hope you can make use of the break and network.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Richard.